What's up, Dragon Brood? So with the release of Kaldheim, you kind of knew at some point we were going to try to put together one of those gods decks. The question really became what colors and how were we going to make the focus, and were we going to be able to use the backsides of the gods, because most of them were double-sided, and then the more I worked on it, the more problems there were. But I think we might have found something that actually works, and it looks pretty fun too. Now, how good it is, we won't know right out of the gate, but we're going to give it a try anyway. Before we get into it though, as always, please remember to like this video so we can get seen by more people. Hit the subscribe button to help me out, and then hit the notification bell so you get notified every time I put a video out, because we're putting multiples per day out leading up to the Kaldheim set release. But for now, let's go take a look at this JUND Gods and Legends deck. Alright, so I want to say, just for starters, we were trying to decide how to play this deck, and it really came down to a couple of things for me. The first was making sure there was enough mana available to cast all the different gods effectively. The other was making sure we had removal, because so much of the deck was going to have to be based around the legendary creatures and the gods to make everything function, that we wanted to make sure we at least had a way to keep things out of the way and keep pressure off while we were building up. Those are like the two key things, and then that started kind of helping the deck come together. So for here, we started with 4 Jaspara Sentinels. And I know a lot of people look and say, why do you want to play the Sentinel? The truth is, it's all about just making mana. And I didn't want to play the Goose because we're going to be trying to use our mana every turn, the way things are laid out, because just so many abilities and so many cards we can play. And with several of the gods, you almost get 2 cards options. So just like lots of stuff happening. I want to make sure we had access to the mana every turn. We should be able to do that with Jaspara Sentinel. And it gets mana of any color, which is also nice. We're playing a full set of Blood Chief Stars. Again, we were talking about just how to keep the pressure off, give us time to get to the cards we want to, play the cards we want to, and this is one that's going to allow us to do that. Then we're playing a couple copies of Shovel, Bane of Monsters. And this was an interesting thing too, because one of the things I ran into with this list is that we couldn't play full sets of a lot of the gods or any card, because almost everything in here is legendary in some way. So that led to some weird decisions that you're probably going to see throughout this list. But Shovel's actually still not bad. It's Death Touch, which can almost serve as removal or deterrent to your opponent, but it does result in extra life and a card, and we do have some ways to remove creatures. So, you know, maybe we get something out of that. We're going to play a full set of Lotus Cobras. Lotus Cobra, again, just making different color mana is important. It can help us ramp up a mana or two ahead down the road, so that's also good. And it is just a chump blocker early if we need it to be. And in some cases, believe it or not, it can be a red herring for our opponents sometimes, because people will panic and want to kill a Cobra just because they don't want you to get the extra mana, when in reality, maybe you really want to just be sticking some of your other creatures. Then we have 2 Valki, God of Lies. Now, this functions kind of as a discard card early, can let you turn this into something bigger. The good news is we have lots of ways to make mana, so we're likely to be able to turn it into whatever we want to. Even better, though, as this having the backside of the large Tybalt at 7 mana, we're actually able to cast that in this list. So it wouldn't be that unreal to just maybe, I don't know if I'd say turn like 3, obviously, but you know, turn 4, turn 5, maybe there's a way we can make enough mana that we go ahead and just play that early and start trying to take the game over with an early Planeswalker. Going back to the top here, one of the next most important cards in the list is Asika. One of the few legends here we just went all out on. And the reason is, Asika taps for a mana of any color. Again, we're playing different color things. We have backsides that have different colors and things going on. We want to be able to use all those. The other is that it lets all legendary creatures tap for 1 mana any color. Well, when everything in the deck is practically legendary or already makes mana, this means we can cast whatever we want. And then the backside, having the enchantment that lets you search out any legend every turn. You need to have Wooburg. Well, we're going to be able to get that pretty easy with this build to be able to cast that. So we're actually pretty excited about it, having the ability to actually cast the other side, which means very rarely is this card actually going to be dead in our hand, even with multiple copies. So super excited about that. Then we've got Klothys, God of Destiny. Probably looking at that and going like, why Klothys? Well, a couple of reasons. First, it does gain life, which can buy us time. It can remove cards in graveyards, which could be a thing, especially with like some of the zombie lists coming up, Still having some of the rogue decks having stuff in the yard, Lurus list, lots of reasons. The other thing is that this list can actually get Klothys live with some regularity. I mean, when you look at Factive, we have Jaspara, Sentinel, Cobra, Shovel. These are all green. You have Asika, which is double green. Some other cards that are double green and double red. So we could actually get Klothys live and be fighting with it. And Klothys is also legendary and a god. Qualifies for multiple things in this deck. We're playing one Egon, God of Destiny, or God of Death, sorry. And it's just a big card. You know, how often are we going to get to use it? I don't know. We're going to see. I'm not so excited about the back card just milling yourself for things, but there's a spot where it could be relevant. But if nothing else, it's just a big late game 6/6 for cheap mana, so we're okay with that. Then we're playing two Questing Beasts. I actually wanted to play a third, but I just ran out of room, and at some point something had to give. I will say, if you want to make a change in here, it's possible to play another Questing Beast over a Terror of the Peaks, potentially. But I do feel like we're going to be able to get the mana consistently enough that having a Terror isn't the worst thing if you're trying to like have some big damage or some big blockers and just do something over the top. Then we're playing Korvori, sorry. And we wanted to play 4 of these, and then I backed off to just playing 3 of them. But Korvori gets a bonus if you control at least 3 other legendary creatures. It gets +4/+2, which means you get a 6/6 for 4 mana. Stellar. Everything in here practically is a legend or a god in some way, which are also legendary, so that should be awesome. The backside is an artifact that can make mana, which you can choose a creature type, like God, for instance, and just be using the mana for that, right? So it's you can cast just about everything in this deck fairly easy, and we're going to be able to generate a lot of mana. Because look, so far, we've got Jaspara Sentinel, Lotus Cobra, Asika, Klothys, and Korvori all have some way of making mana. Like, that's a lot of mana this deck can generate, and a large chunk of that is in multiple colors. So we should be able to use every card in this list however we want to, which is awesome. Then we have Toralf, God of Fury. 5/4 for 4 trample. Whenever a creature or planeswalker opponent controls is dealt non-combat damage, Toralf deals damage equal to the excess to another target. Now, we don't have a lot of ways for that to happen. However, like we said, we do have a Terror of the Peaks in the list, which makes that a little bit easier. And I will say the backside is the hammer that you get a bonus if you equip it, or +3/+0 if it's equipped to a legendary creature, which again, lots of legendary creatures on the list. But if you remove it, you get to deal 3 damage to something. So really, it's the backside of Toralf, which is why I wanted it in this list, which is funny because generally I want the front side. But the backside actually letting us have another way of damage and removal, big deal. So very big fan of that in this list. Then we're playing 1 copy of Binding of the Old Gods. Another card where I tried to squeeze in a second one, and at one point I think I had up to 3, and then I removed it. And this is just really for removal and nothing else. Really just the first ability is all we're looking for. It lets us remove any non-land permanent the opponent controls. And that's just, I don't know, maybe you're worried about a Great Hinge, maybe there's some enchantment you want to get rid of. Like, it just gives us a way to do it. It's only 1. I'd really like to have a second one. Truthfully, if things don't work out, I'm probably going to replace the Egon with another Binding of the Old Gods. The other 2 abilities on it, or chapters, don't really do much. You get to search for a plane or a forest, which doesn't do a whole lot in this list. And then creatures you control gain Death Touch, but you already have fairly sizable creatures. But maybe your early creatures having Death Touch can matter. I don't know. But if you're looking for a switch down the road, or maybe you want to save on rares or mythic wildcards, that's something I would consider. And then we're playing 2 Korvold, the Fakehurst, or Fakehurst King. And the reason is, 1, we can just cast this pretty efficient. There's going to be a lot of turn 4s where we're just going to be able to just drop Korvold. Yeah, and that in and of itself can be good. So it gets you extra cards, gets a bigger creature. It's also a legendary creature. So there's some spots where we may be able to utilize that with the other abilities in the deck. So really good all-around card. And we haven't had a lot of decks on the channel where we've been able to focus on Korvold, so it's nice to include that. And then, like I said, we're going to go play 4 copies of Terror of the Peaks. And it may look like this is a lot, but truthfully, again, if we can cast Korvold on 4, you're damn sure we can cast Terror of the Peaks on 4. Maybe on 3 in a couple of situations. Not often, but for sure should be able to do it on 4. But like I said, there is a world where maybe you go turn 1, Sentinel, turn 2, Cobra, turn 3, land, tap the land, tap your others, tap Cobra with Sentinel, cast Terror of the Peaks, right? That's a thing you can do on turn 3. That's not that weird. So possible, not often, but possible that it could happen. So something to just keep in mind there. But overall, yeah, this gives you a lot of ways to do damage. Lots of variety of creatures. You've got flyers. You've just got big bodies. You've got mana creatures. You got some death touch things. You know, like the backsides of all the gods are actually relevant in this deck, which I like. We can use all of those. So it's almost like getting another like 10 cards to play with that could have a different ability, which is also pretty awesome. So lots of stuff we're able to do with this list, which I'm really digging. Let's take a look at the lands though. We are playing a whole bunch of pathways. Like that was going to happen no matter what. So we're playing Blightstep, Crag Crown, Dark Boar, all the pathways effectively. So we can get all the mana we need all the time. 3 Fable Passage. I thought about playing more, but truthfully, we could end up without a lot of targets anyway, because we're not playing a ton of basics. So we're going with 3 passages, and the passages do sometimes help the Cobra. So that's a good thing. Playing 2 forests, 2 mountains, 1 swamp, and then we're playing 2 world trees, actually. And this is kind of neat because though the world tree comes into play tapped, it's fine. We only have a couple of 1 mana things, but you only have to get the 10 Wooburg, or, you know, 2 white, 2 blue, 2 black, 2 green, you know, like whatever, 2 red. But you can actually hit that with this list. So it's possible you can actually crack the world tree and then just get a pile of things into play, which if you already have a Terror of the Peaks on the board, like that, what is that? Like, I don't know, if I go back and do the math, it's probably like 20 damage by itself right out the gate and kills your opponent. Right, so that's actually pretty up. Actually, more than that, I bet. But either way, that's a thing you can do. Really run down your opponent that way, or just set up a big turn next turn. That's a big deal. So yeah, big fan of the World Tree. And the other thing too I noticed about it is you have to pay all that mana. You sacrifice the World Tree, search your library for any number of God cards, put them into play, then shuffle your library. The best part is not as a sorcery, so you can actually do that during your opponent's end step, which is amazing. Right, it's crazy. Because you can get mana both from your creatures and from the lands. So you can do it at any point. And this will make all your lands tap for multiple colors, which is also nice. So big fan of that. And then we're trying 2 of the Tyrite Sanctums. Taps for colorless, not a big deal. We have colored mana all over the place otherwise, even from our creatures. You can pay 2 and tap it. Legendary creature becomes a god in addition to its other types, but a +1/+1 counter on it. So you can use this on pretty much any creature in the deck, except for, I think, the Cobras and the Jaspara Sentinels. So I guess and Terror of the Peaks. Everything else is a legendary creature of some kind, so you can just give creatures +1/+1 every turn, which is awesome. Or you can pay 4 and just give a god indestructible until end of turn. So if you just have that big creature, say Kolvari is like a 6/6, your opponent goes to sweep the board, and you're like, you know what, we're just going to make it indestructible so I can attack you for 6 next turn. Like, well, I guess if you lost your other creatures, you'd be attacking for 2, but you'd still have a creature on the board if you want to attack with it. So that's a thing you can do. Maybe save a late game Corvold, possibly. That's a thing. But anyway, just getting to use some of these new lands and see what they're up to, really. So yeah, this is the deck so far of all the Kaldheim decks I put together that had the most fun building. Like, it felt the most ambitious because it was just like there's all these choices and all these colors and how to narrow it down and how are they all going to interact. And this actually looks like a lot of fun. It really does. And like I said, being able to use all those gods, having the double facing with the actual castable cards on the backside, gives you so many extra choices that the other decks aren't going to have. It's actually a really cool upside to this deck, and being able to cast everything efficiently and quickly, also good. So yeah, if you want something fun, different, you want to really utilize Kaldheim for what it is and all the new cards, check this one out. It's actually a lot of fun. The only thing it maybe lacks, if I were going to say it lacks anything, would be some actually card economy. You're not really drawing cards, I guess, at anywhere. But you do have a lot of efficient damage and ways to get stuff out there with sizable creatures, so that counts for something, I guess. But yeah, overall, super fun looking deck. Really check this one out, give it a look. I expect this one to be a lot of fun when I finally get to play with it. Also, remember, if you haven't, please like this video so more people get to see it. Hit the subscribe button to help me out, and then hit the notification bell so you get notified every time we put a deck up, since we're trying to put out a ton of these before Kaldheim's hits the scene. That's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.